Science of Mind by Dr. Jim Turrell. So the basics that we want to look at are three things: cause, mentality, and visible effect. Cause, the description, the creative power and intelligence that we call spirit. Now, I would add to that the creative power and the intelligence that we call spirit or God or Buddha or Atman or Son of God or the Christ consciousness or the Holy Living Spirit. What I would add to that is that this description is one, that this description of the creative power and the intelligence or spirit is all there is. There's nothing in opposition with it. There's no opposing power, good and evil. There is only one. And that any evil or false belief or the word sin sometimes has been interpreted as a self-imposed nonsense. And we know that that can be very serious also, that none of those behaviors or actions or beliefs can absorb this creative power of the infinite presence and love. The invisible principle of all form cannot be any one form in particular. This one invisible presence also, this thing that we call cause, it has feeling. In fact, cause is the only real feeling of life. It is pure love awaiting your recognition and your expression. Now, some of you may have heard the idea that there's only two things going on at the human experience, which now we begin to move into the mentality, and that human experience is that we are on a continuum of love and fear. That when we are over on the side of the continuum, that we are aligned with the infinite nature of love, the truth of who we are, the invisible, eternal oneness with our source, then we know who we are and we are able to step in faith out into our life and to trust. To trust ourselves, to trust that there is this invisible essence of love and intelligence at the center of our being, guiding us, and that as we move along on that path, that we truly are guided through our intuition. And so I propose to you that the connection between cause and mentality, cause, infinite spirit, and then us, mentality, is actually our intuition. Mentality is where we know and accept the fact that we are the director of our lives. You are the director of your movie. That's why God answered yes and no. Because God is the creative power, we co-create by supplying to cause what it is that we want to see happen through our imagination, through our feelings, and through our intuition of knowing that this is what's right for us. Know thyself. Now, Jim Turrell, who wrote this book, The Gospel of Science of Mind and Cause and Effect, said the first rule of mentality: life is not out of order. just spinning. To put your life back in order, you must stop spinning long enough to see who you are in relationship to cause. This requires a familiarity with your spirituality, with your psychology, and with your philosophical perception. When I came into this teaching, one of the things that got my attention early on in reading in class out loud the writing from the Science of Mind textbook by Dr. Ernest Holmes was that all of the descriptions, the multitude of descriptions that he wrote about what God is, were a part of me. Now, I always believed in God as a small child. And if someone had asked me, and I may have shared this with you before, if someone had asked me as a small child, what is God? I would have said just like you, God is love. Because in my little Sunday school class, we sang, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. I hadn't read all the other books that were going to tell me the same thing yet. I hadn't read the Science of Mind textbook, but I knew about the Bible. And I received that message that Jesus loved me as truth. There was something intuitive and inherent within me that said, yes, that's the truth. Now, thank God that I had that message, because as I traveled on in my life and got older, there were a lot of other things that happened that were telling me that maybe I wasn't loved, or maybe that I wasn't a being of love, or maybe I wasn't worthy. And that truly is the bottom line here. Within our mentality, the place that supplies the desires and the feelings and the thought and the initiative to move toward our dreams, do I believe that I'm worthy? It's no accident, Molly, that when you came to that part of the letter about being worthy and being deserving, this is a universal issue with humanity. Believing that we are worthy. And I pose to you that the more that we read spiritual material, I just keep going back to the basics of when I sat there as a novice reading the textbook. I didn't understand all of it, but I know how I felt when I read it. I felt good. And I went away each week from the class with new ideas to think about as I drove up the Skyway, Lower Magalia, around that gorgeous Paradise Lake, up to Lower Paradise Pines, looking out at the lake. I started seeing it differently just because of pondering this universal nature that creates all things, that has the intelligence and the wherewithal within itself cause, and that to every cause I set into motion through my thought, there is an effect. Now, while all that was going on, I still had a lot of spinning, just like one of those tops. And an event would happen, and my reaction to the event would be just like sitting there and pumping that little, you know what I'm talking about? Those old toys spinning that would just go, whoop. except it was me. It was my emotions taking off in that thing. And a wise teacher would say, Christine, your emotions are running rampant. Breathe. Remember who you are. Tap in to that divine intuitive wisdom that not only knows who you are, but knows what you want to create. Because in order for cause to take form through my mentality, it has to pass through my mentality. Spirit works for me only by working through me. So what you think about all day long, you become. What you react to, that you have the most amount of reaction as opposed to clarity of a response, is where we know that we need to do our healing. Where we know that we need to go back to cause, to the idea that there's one creative power and intelligence that I call spirit. It is the very essence of who I am. I'm grounded and centered in it. I sit in the quiet calm of this unconditional love. I know that I am worthy and deserving, and that I have something powerful to give not only to myself, but to the world. And that the more I give that to myself, capabilities and new ideas and strength, internal strength, to stand in the face of things that tweak me, now is a little tweak. And the things that are tweaking me big, I know that as I keep working with them, they will get smaller and smaller, and they will have less of a visible effect. So we have cause. We have mentality, where we are the director of our movie. How do you want to respond? If you could slow things down long enough to visualize what the movie's going to look like 30 minutes later in terms of how you respond or what you choose, you are using the power of creative intelligence. We always know we're on the right track when we follow our heart. Following our heart. What is it we really want? Who are we really as spirit? Cause is where we get grounded. Cause is where we return to the basics and reacquaint ourselves with the idea that we are spirit in form. So let's talk a little bit about this thing called visible effect. Some things that we can say for sure about visible effect is that all effect is subject to change. It was never, ever, ever intended to be infinite and have an infinite existence. No matter what the form is, people, places, ideas, feelings, emotions, any situation, no matter how horrific or how beautiful, cannot absorb the infinite. In our personal lives, form, matter, and experience evolves and changes as we expand our capacity to follow our heart. Isn't that amazing? When we follow our heart, we expand our capacity to have experiences evolve and expand in our life. Now, that's kind of a no-brainer when you think about the idea that it's done unto me as I believe. This morning, I sat on the side of my bed I sit on when I'm going to do my meditation. Not the side I sleep on. It's my meditation side. And I was up really early this morning, and I noticed that the dog next door was barking. And I've thought about all the people that on the other street that back up to my neighbor's house. One of them I know, and the other day I saw them come driving the street. My street is a dead-end circle, and I saw this couple that I know that live on the back street from my neighbor, come driving down, and I thought, they're really slow, looking at all the houses. I thought, what are they doing? I know what they're doing. They're trying to figure out what house the barking dog is coming from. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just run out there and tell them that my neighbor is in the hospital. And that's why the dog is barking, because he's not there. And then I thought, I think I was probably in my robe or something like that. I was like, I'm not going to do that. So this morning, sat down on my bed, and the dog is barking. And because I moved from my everyday intellectual mindset of like, yeah, the dog is barking, John's not here, I feel so bad for the dog. Now I'm moving into my meditation, and there was this little like, the dog is barking. And took a deep breath. I thought, well, okay, maybe I can use my meditation for, sending some good vibes to the dog. And this memory came to me that when I think back on it, it's kind of comical. I'm going to share it with you. But this was a long time ago. I was living in Paradise, and my neighbor's dog barked a lot at night, and he went to work at night. He worked all night. So, of course, every night I'm going to bed, the dog starts barking. And every day. Now, I wasn't a minister yet, but I had a lot of classes. And I went over and I put a note on his door. Your dog is barking every night. Nothing. I tried to talk to him when I saw him out there. He actually turned away and tried to, basically, he didn't care. And as soon as I found out he didn't care, I started spinning, even a little bit more. And so I called the animal control or something like that. Well, we have to hear that the dog is barking and all that. Okay, so sometime later, now in between all this, I'm trying to get grounded and not be spinning. But when you're laying in bed, right, not able to sleep, and it's getting to be 1 o'clock in the morning, like, So one night, of course, there were no cell phones at that time. I went, I'm going to go find my cassette recorder, and I am going to record this dog. So I went through the whole process of doing this, which all it did was to create more angst in me. There was never any resolution to the problem out at the level of the problem. So, when I had exhausted all other outer possibilities to solve the problem, I decided that I better start using principle that I was learning and probably was a practitioner at that time. And so I started doing treatment about it during the day. Well, day one, I did treatment during the day. And the treatment was not that the dog would stop barking. The treatment was that I was so grounded in the truth of who I am, that I was so calm, so at peace, that when I went to bed, I slept peacefully, no matter what. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but my memory tells me that it worked day one. And, you know, the crazy thing about that, the big takeaway for me, was all of the energy that I had spent trying to change the visible effect, rather than trying to change doing what I knew would work to align myself back with the truth of who I was, to turn away from the visible effect, and to know that I was the calm and the peace and sleeping soundly, and that I could send blessings to the dog and whatever it was so many years ago that I treated. Why was it that it took me so darn long? Well, habit, conditioning. Damn it, I'm going to fix this. I think it's really time, because it's so many years later now, and we've all evolved so much. It's time for us to forget this. It's time for us to move quickly into appearance, into the truth, and away from the appearances. Every effect that we can see or feel owes its existence to cause. There's only one creator. The thoughts that we focus on with feeling and memory as the creative power and intelligence is what is important. There came a time that that dog stopped barking. For whatever reason. The guy's schedule changed. He let the dog inside. I don't know what it was. Thank goodness I didn't have to wait. That I said, I'm the director of my movie, and going out and trying to change the experience is not directing my movie. As a matter of fact, it's directing my movie in a story that I don't want to live. And at this moment, I'm reminded from being at service this morning for the Chico Center that this is a very, very important time in our history this year, 2020. And it's a very, very important time because it's an election year for us to rein ourselves back in from any spinning that we may be doing about events that are happening in the outer world and get really, really clear about what it is that we want. What we want to see in our lives, in the world, globally, and for Mother Earth. What's important to us? What do we value? If we focus on that, we will know what our choices are. And we will know how to show up. Because as I was reminded by Reverend Kathy's comment, everything as this year moves on that we start to hear about the election, all the advertisements, all of the media, all of the unbelievable amount of billions and gazillions of dollars that are going to be spent on the ads will all be rooted in fear. Knowing what we're dealing with in every area of our life, even knowing what our buttons are and our triggers are, helps us to prepare ahead of time for what's going to come. We all know our patterns. You know, we've been around the block, right? We know the visible effects out here that really all they're doing is mirroring. It's a mirror right down into us with what needs to be healed. This is the time to bring ourselves back to the present moment. This is the time to bring ourselves to knowing that through our treatment work and through the work of picking up pen and paper and actually writing what it is that we want and what were the beliefs and the reactions that we're willing to let go of, we become so clear and dedicated to ourselves. And the more dedicated each one of us is to ourselves, we're automatically dedicated to the greater good. So in closing, I want to remind us that when we're calm, we can get connected with our intuition. Intuition is always willing and receptive. The intellect is willful and demanding. When we're calm and connected with our intuition, we operate out of a belief of acceptance and faith. We can even stand calm in the face of what is unacceptable. Doesn't mean we're liking it, but we don't have to get rocked off our center or be like a top spinning off into who knows where. When we're calm and connected with our receptivity, rather than our intellect, we have unlimited access to the pure potentiality of life. Our intellect says we're limited. And what makes you think that you can have that anyway? You haven't learned from experience yet. It's a call for love. God is love. Now, what's my line, I think, was related to, will the real me stand up? And so I want to invite you as I close and we move into a healing meditation, that you close your eyes and imagine yourself. See yourself from your heart. Open your intuition and see yourself, feel yourself as the God being that you are. That you truly are unlimited. Because you have been created in and out of a pure, creative, loving, infinite intelligence and wisdom. That you are some part of this whole. That you are one and connected with your source. feel that part of yourself down to your toes that knows that you are a spiritual being, that you are larger than your physical body, that you are consciousness. And that your consciousness has a unique and individualized mentality, full of gifts, full of desires to express and to be and to give and to share, to collaborate, to know that there is more than enough resources, more than enough time. That as you choose from your heart, from the wisdom of your heart, as you follow what you truly love, that your giving inspires you, it empowers you, it rejuvenates you. That you know that you are connected first and foremost with every aspect of yourself, and that you have more than enough love to love all the parts of you that believe that those parts are unacceptable. Open your mind. Imagine the visible effect that you want to experience in your life. See yourself as a delightful, free, heartfelt, light, loving individual. Take the lid off of your imagination and allow yourself to expand into the light. Know that the divine source from which you have come, that invisible power and creative force, is moving through you right now. That you can send this imagination out into infinite mind, and that it is returning to you. Declare that you are worthy. For look from where you came. One creative power, one love, one divine essence, one wholeness. And now breathing all of that back into the present moment. Feeling yourself sitting on the chair. Feeling your feet on the floor. Delighting in the very essence of your own consciousness. Smile. Nobody's looking. And together we say, and so it is.